Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show, the podcast bringing you all the latest football action from West Yorkshire and beyond. I'm Stephen Brown, and with me in the studio is Tim Feather. You all right, Tim?
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. So, Tim, this past week, anything in particular caught your eye? You came in here quite happy because of Bradford City finally winning a game of football.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to get winning again after two back-to-back.
I'm quite depressed. Leeds, come on.
Yeah, 9 goals in a week. That's tough to take, is that, isn't it?
Just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. There's a great Twitter quote that someone did before. It was McDermott came out, I think this was about 2 or 3 months ago, said that was the worst day I've had in football. And then all the things that have happened since he said that quote, the sacking, the reinstatement, 6-0, yeah, so it's pretty much sums up the entire thing.
No, I just can't understand what's going on at Leeds at the moment. I mean, obviously I can only watch the highlights,
yes,
that's all I get, but the defending this past week, I think that's something that needs sorting out.
Well, this is it. Because I've been, hobnobbing, in the showbiz ways and that. I've literally, what happened with the Bolton game was didn't know the score and then looked on, it was 3-0, and then looked on again, it was like 4-0. I was like, what is going on here? This is terrible. And it happened again.
I was working in the studio
2 days later
for the B2B Sports Extra.
Yeah.
I was in the studio for that, and it said 1-0 Leeds, 1-0 Bolton.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, okay then.
Yeah, half time.
And then suddenly, I went out, popped out the studio for about 5 minutes, came back in and saw that Bolton were 3-0 up. I was just like, what's going on here?
Come on. Elsewhere then, Tim, Champions League action this week. I got a tweet off Mr. Feather about Real Madrid. You think it's got to be? Hasn't it?
You know what? I know the word that all the kids are using. The swag that Real Madrid have.
Is this a Gary Lineker in the World Cup? When he used Dench or whatever it was.
Yes, I think this is. Yeah. But the swag that Real Madrid have got, and
it's good, isn't it?
It is, and I can't see. Barcelona didn't overly impress me. Bayern Munich haven't overly impressed me now, unless they've got another gear to get into. I don't know, but. I think Real Madrid, I think they could win La Liga, I think they could win Champions League, I think they could easily do the double. Carlo Ancelotti is a fantastic manager. Yeah,
and if he wins this with Real Madrid, if he wins the League or the Champions League, I mean, the guy's got a pretty good record all around, hasn't he? All around, apart from Chelsea, but everyone fails at Chelsea in the end. So coming up on the show, we're going to have all our usual updates for the teams here in our region, including Leeds United, Huddersfield Town, Bradford City, Halifax Town, Guiseley and Bradford Park Avenue. Plus, we're going to preview all of this weekend's Premiership games. Right, unfortunately, it is a requirement of the show to keep a tab on all the teams here in this region, and it's been a particularly bad week for Leeds. I don't know how that's possible to even say after the season it's been, but we're joined now on the phone by our Leeds United correspondent, it's Jennifer Berry. You right, Jen?
I'm not bad, thanks.
Where do we even begin? I mean, let's go back to Saturday against Bolton. What a fiasco!
There's so little to say about it. It just keeps seeming to happen every single week. I just seem to say the same thing, and not sure where it ends, really. Yeah,
it's quite astonishing how bad it's got, and I suppose looking at things behind the scenes, quite worrying quotes from Cellino. He seems to have kind of giving up, but it's been difficult for him, hasn't it? And it's taken its toll, and he's not going to put any more money in. We hope the takeover's going to go through, but we just don't know, do we?
No, I mean, to be honest, I'm no fan of his, but I can understand that it must be extremely frustrating. I mean, this trial that's sort of coming up is ridiculously bad timing, but it should have been approved ages ago. I say approved, it should have at least had a resolution by now, and it's understandable. I mean, if he feels in any way that it might not go through, then you don't blame him for saying, well, I'm not going to put any more money in. But on the other hand, you've got GFH who are saying, well, actually, we're in charge and we're funding it, but they don't have any money, so it's all just completely up in the air, and you don't know what's happening from one day to the next. I mean, the Football League have just put out a statement this evening, I think, just saying, we've talked more about it, and we're still awaiting some bits of information. It just seems to be the same thing every week.
It's just really galling, isn't it? What did you think of Cellino's comments after that game on Saturday? He was saying the players pissed him off. I don't know about you, but I was kind of going, yeah, he's right.
To be honest,
that's right, Massimo.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand,
I don't know if it's helpful, but
no, exactly. On the one hand, it's like he's a chairman; he shouldn't really be saying that sort of thing. But in fairness, he was saying what we were all thinking. The players, they didn't turn up. It was a disgraceful performance, really. And like I said, I don't think it helps, but and it might sort of take something like that for these players to sort of stand up and be counted. But then it didn't. So
I don't know about you, but I have this nagging, suspicion that the Football League are going to make an example out of Leeds again and not let Cellino actually get clearance. Despite him being a football man and he's run a club for 22 years, I've just got this nagging doubt that they're going to block it, and if it does, then we're really screwed then, as we've talked about before, with possible administration. Although JFH have said they don't want it to go down that route, but can we really believe them at this point?
Well, exactly. You just don't believe anything that Haig's saying. I mean,
no.
It's got to the point now where he's no longer officially involved with GFH.
No.
He's part of the club, but then if he's not from GFH, who's paying his wage, he's saying he's not taking any money, and we've all heard that before.
Yeah.
But no, you don't believe him, and he said that, like I said, that GFH are in charge and they have the money, and he said that admin's it's not even anything that they're thinking about, because it's not going to happen. The club's going to be fine, but unless they're going to go cap in hand to Farnell and go
Oops.
any price, no offence, mate, any chance you want to come in?
Yeah, no hard feelings.
You can't see what's going to happen, really. And then, from the Football League's point of view as well, I mean, there's implications for them as well if they put us into, if it goes to administration, if they, effectively enforce that by rejecting this takeover. And, without wanting to sound like a typical sort of Leeds fan, we're the big club and everybody cares about us. Yeah. We're a big deal in the league. They're going to lose a lot of money if we get into trouble. And if, for instance, we did get relegated or something like that. So I can't imagine it's something they want, especially to do. No. But considering that Sean Harvey's in charge, like you say, there's just that nagging doubt. You're not sure, and yet they still turn around to say there's no conflict of interest. I mean,
it's ridiculous. You think how? Yeah, it's. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, coming back to matters on the pitch, I've got to admit I was one of those after Tuesday's game against Reading where I did put a few tweets out going, McDermott out. That's it. He's in. Blah blah blah. But I've heard his press conference on Thursday, and it makes it so simple what the problems are. Leeds sacking managers, the dysfunctional atmosphere at the club. Is it right to blame McDermott? Wrong to blame McDermott? Should he be given time in normal circumstances? If they ever happen for Leeds?
I think the problem McDermott's got, and it's not exclusive to him. It's every manager goes through it. Warnock did as well. He's got his favourites, and there is all stuff that's coming out now that I suppose has long been really known. It's just badly kept secrets almost about that he's losing players, that he's got favourites, and that he may well be losing the dressing room. And considering the type of manager that he is, it's probably not too surprising. I think you have to you put some of the blame on him. I don't think you can.
No.
He's not untouchable. He's a lovely bloke. He's very humble. And he genuinely wants to be here to do well for the club, but it's not happening for him. And he's making changes that it almost feels like he is just giving in to the fans. And to be fair, you can't really see any other option for him.
No.
But there are decisions that he's made that possibly were an oversight on his part or just generally a mistake. And you look at the results, obviously, that we've had recently, and he comes out after every game and says that was the worst game that I've ever had, and it seems to be happening, more and more often. And he says, well, it's never happened to my side.
What we've got to learn, what we've got to do, what we've got to learn, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same things that he's saying as well. It's like bingo session, actually, with his interviews. And, we feel for him, obviously. Yeah. I think it's an absolute disgrace that GFH continue to sort of, bugger up this whole thing. And and not perform their role as as owners, in that they're not talking to their customers.
No.
They're not talking to the fans. They're basically just leaving McDermott just to sort of dig his own grave, really.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, I'm sure they'll sort of be quite happy to let him fall into it. So.
Jen, we put it out on Twitter asking people if they think McDermott should go, and We Are Leeds FB said very nice guy, very sad to say, but I think his time is over. He understood us and brought the fans back to Ellen Road. Noel said time to go. Scott M. Jones said time up. I mean, I'm gonna stand in McDermott's corner, and I'm going to say that he's taking control of the club at a very difficult time, and looking over the past couple, obviously I can only see the highlights, but it just seems like that defence is something that needs sorting out, and I think he's tried to bring Jack Butland in to sort that out and help out with that, but it just doesn't seem to have worked so far.
No, I think these are sort of issues that possibly stem from his management of the players. He has been given two decent tools to sort of try and salvage the season, but it always comes down to, what's the alternative? On the one hand, are you going to keep a manager because there is no alternative? It's probably not a good enough reason to actually keep him in the job. But on the other hand, like you said, he's galvanised the club. Well, he did. And like you say, people came back to the club and were being supported in decent numbers again. And people sort of were a bit more united, and then it's like Bates all over again. You've got people who like GFH and people who want Cellino, and then those who don't want him at all. To be honest, I don't know how much would be achieved by sacking him, especially not now. No manager, however much, even if it was a Leeds fan, they're not going to come to the club in this kind of state. So
it's just embarrassing, though, isn't it, Jen? When we were 5-1 down on Saturday, it's just difficult to take. There's been, the tweet I put was that there's been too many embarrassments on the pitch. Never mind off it.
Absolutely,
on the pitch, we've been a joke.
Yeah, at first, back when sort of before Christmas, it was all right. You could ignore that sort of stuff because it was all right on the pitch, but when Leeds fans are sort of suffering like this, it's very difficult for the players. McCormack came out, didn't he, and said, it's not very helpful that the fans are booing it 1-0 down, but it's such a farce that I spent most of those two games with my jaw on the floor. I can't remember the last time I was that stunned at how poorly Leeds were playing, and it just can't continue. That's the bottom line, and the problem is that even under Warnock or even Grayson, they were able to get responses out of the players. They came out and said afterwards, it won't happen again, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't seem to have done anything different. You can drop the players that have been out and done to training when they've been drunk, but at the end of it, nothing seems to have changed. So you've got, I'm not particularly pro or con for McDermott at the minute, but on the one hand, there are no changes that have been made. Nothing's getting better, but on the other hand, he's got his hands tied behind his back, and then to a metal post as well. So
one last thing on the past two games, can we try looking at it in a different light and maybe think that the two teams that Leeds played were both fighting for something, whereas I think Leeds over the past couple, 4 or 5 weeks, have probably realised that playoffs are probably a little bit too far for him. Reading were pushing really hard for the playoffs. You look at some of the clubs that are up there that they're up against, and Bolton were basically down there. They were fighting for their lives, and that win on Saturday, from their point of view, they consider themselves pretty much safe for the league. Could it be that kind of mentality of those clubs that those teams that Leeds played against?
Possibly, but by the same token, if we sort of went out with the same mentality and we were sort of keeping ourselves in contention, it'd just give us that little extra something to aim towards. But in the last, it's not even that we're out of touch mathematically. It's the manner of those results that's just completely counts us out. And now the season is like I say, it's not mathematically impossible, but it is over. And with those sorts of performances, that's ultimately killed it for us. So you'd argue that if the player, it doesn't matter what the game is, if the player's lost his appetite, then what they're doing here really.
Exactly. Well, on the bright side, we've only got Burnley up next. All the way down in second place. What a game that is. Although we put in a performance against QPR, didn't we? Another week. What do you think, Jen? Or is it going to be another mauling? I've got a feeling though we'll be a bit more resolute.
To be honest, I think we will. I still think we'll lose, but
it's not embarrassingly. That's the thing.
Exactly. I mean, the way it's been going, I think how sad is it that we've got to this point now where we take a defeat as long as it wasn't a humiliation.
I know. Please, just 2-0.
Exactly. Exactly. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Absolutely. Jen, thanks for coming on and joining us.
No worries.
Hopefully there'll be some better news next week. We'll see.
Clutch at some straws, but...
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
There we go. That's Jennifer Berry. Like all Leeds fans, a bit depressed at the moment. If we touched on it in the introduction and with Jen, then it's really bad. I think we've said all we can. I can only see a Burnley win. What about yourself, Tim?
I can only see a Burnley win there as well. But let's try and give some positive news to Leeds United fans.
Yes.
Ross McCormack's been nominated for Player of the Month.
Yay! Yay! Well done, Ross.
But so has Sam Vokes, I think. Right. Or Danny Ings, one of them has.
Oh. So. Good luck. Just one comment. I've started a Leeds United football manager with my friend, and I'm second. Yeah. Second in the league at December, I think. Here we go.
You're doing all right,
Massimo, if you're listening. Not listening. Never mind. There we go. So hopefully we'll have something a bit brighter to talk about with Leeds next week.
Follow us on Twitter @The Route One Show. Visit our Tumblr, tumblr.com/The Route One Show, or email us, therouteoneshow@gmail.com.
OK, we're looking at Huddersfield Town now, and joining us on the line to discuss everything to do with the Terriers, it's the Huddersfield Examiner's Doug Thompson. Hi, Doug.
Hiya.
Thanks for joining us. How frustrating is it at the moment being a Town fan? You win one, you lose one. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? And the level of performances, how they've gone up and down as well.
Yeah, I mean, just as we were saying last week, really, inconsistent has been the watchword of the season, really.
Yeah.
Slightly better at Charlton last night. A draw, which is a variable for Town, isn't it? It's usually a win and a defeat.
Yeah, what happened now? Did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to get to terms with it.
Bizarre.
But a better performance last night, far more determined, more enthusiastic, probably.
Yeah.
But probably a draw was a fair result.
I heard Robbins came out after Saturday. He was saying about this, the fact that when they win a game, it seems to take them a week to get over it almost, and then they're not up to it for the following game. How much do you buy into that, or is it difficult to put your finger on?
It's hard. I mean, it has been very, very sort of match to match in recent weeks. Before that, it was sort of clumps of matches. Little clusters of wins, and then or a win and a draw, then a couple of defeats. I think perhaps it's just getting to grips with the Championship still, and learning what it's like, and really just seeking that consistency of performance, both individually and as a team, week in, week out, and that's where they're finding it hard. Perhaps you could argue that that's why some of the players aren't operating at a higher level. They've come from Premier League clubs, but they can't find that consistency to do it on a regular basis, and that's why they've ended up in the Championship, and it's a sort of learning process for them.
Doug, I did offer this question to Jen earlier on about Leeds, and I was just wondering, would you possibly put some of the results this week against Doncaster and against Charlton down to the fact that Doncaster and Charlton are fighting for their lives at the bottom, so they're going to probably put up a bit more of a fight than possibly some of the teams that are around you?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fair argument. The other way of looking at it as well is that some of the wins that Town have had without doing those wins down have been against teams who haven't been playing particularly well, haven't played well in that one game, Birmingham and Barnsley you look at. Doncaster, to me, you look like a sort of different kettle of fish. They were a lot better organised, a bit more physical, and they just had that sort of desire, or that real desire to get the 3 points that Town didn't have, whether that's because Town were, mid-table and maybe not quite completely tuned in, and they were, Doncaster were. I don't know, but, from the evidence that I've seen, I'd say Doncaster look a decent bet to stay up, whereas maybe Barnsley don't.
Yeah, I did actually read a few murmurs on Twitter, what Twitter's like, Doug, and people kind of starting to wonder about Robbins a little bit. I mean, some was, defending him, rightly so, because of the standard of football, but others a little bit critical. He's not in any danger at all, is he, really?
I wouldn't have thought so, no. I certainly don't see it that way. I see Town fans more than anybody else, so that's sort of my speciality. But they are very up and down. After Barnsley, everything was fantastic.
It's like a modern phenomenon, doesn't it? That the whole Twitter.
I was just going to say that. I think it is a bit of a modern thing. Everybody wants success instantly, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's far more reactive, when things are going wrong. I think you've got to accept it. And Robbins has made no sort of secret of the fact that, he's going to take 2 or 3 years to get to where he wants to do, and there will be some setbacks along the way. Yeah. I think he'll find it as frustrating as anybody, more frustrating than anybody, because obviously his job, rides on it ultimately. Yeah. But I don't think there's any imminent danger to him, No. I certainly don't think that. We were just talking about it last night, about the difference in ownership, a guy like Dean Hoyle as opposed to somebody like De Châtelet at Charlton, a foreign owner. Yeah, exactly. The issues are a little bit different and the agenda's a bit different. And, you look back at Town over the last sort of 20 years, and, they've probably had 20 different managers, or maybe not quite that many, but, a fair number, and it hasn't really got them anywhere, so you just sort of cry out for a bit of stability and, sticking with somebody for a little while. And I think that, Dean, that sort of relationship, Dean Hoyle, Mark Robbins, Ross Wilson, who's quite influential, and Nigel Clibbins, the chief executive, it seems to be pretty solid, and they all seem to sort of, buy into what each other are doing. Well,
absolutely, and you only have to look at, former manager Lee Clark and the situation he faces at Birmingham to see, the potential mess that teams can be in Huddersfield, if anything, seem really well run. I mean, I'm very envious as a Leeds fan to how stable they are. Yeah,
I mean, that's certainly something that Hoyle's brought in. It probably does make a difference in a way that the fact that he is a fan and he's sort of seen, he's been around a long time and he's seen the ups and downs and what can happen. It's almost like a sort of old-fashioned, model, if you like local man made good. But the other thing I notice about Dean Hoyle is he's obviously a pretty successful businessman, and he can be quite ruthless when he wants to be. And he has got a sort of, a proper financial plan going forward, of making the club a bit more self-sustainable. Whether they'll ever get totally self-sustainable, I don't know. I mean, you've got to get into the Premier League to have even a shout at doing that. And when you do, that brings other issues. But he's certainly got them on a far more sort of, money-making footing, and everything's a bit sharper down there. The commercial side is a bit sharper. They've got the training ground now, so everything's sort of following, a blueprint, and it seems to be working.
Absolutely. So, Doug, it's Blackburn up next. They're on not a great run for themselves the last 3 games. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I mean, really, the whole story with Town, it could go anywhere, really. You look at Blackburn having lost the last 3, and you think that can't carry on. Yeah. Obviously, Jordan Rhodes is coming back. That always adds an element of interest, and we know how he can score. He hasn't scored many in the last 2 games. I think he's got 1 in 11 games.
Oh, dear.
So that's a bit of an issue. But it's a winnable game, certainly. And like I say, at Charlton last night, it was a far more there was more application and more motivation and desire from what I could see. Yeah. So hopefully that will carry on. It would be good to get home when in front of our fans and just try and push on into the top half of the table, which ultimately, I think that would be a good finish for us.
Absolutely. Doug, thanks very much for joining us.
No pleasure. No problem.
Take care, mate. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye. There we go. So that's Doug Thompson there on Huddersfield Town. Like we say, up and down. Really, I agree with Doug. I think it could go anywhere. A bit of weird that they actually had a draw. I'm quite confused by that. Yeah, I think it may be another draw, actually, if anything. What do you think against Blackburn?
Yeah, I think. Against these kind of clubs, Huddersfield managed to come up top trumps, don't they, and managed to grind out a win. But I'll tell you what, right? This is an interesting Huddersfield stat. They will be looking for their first win over Blackburn. Go on, have a guess the last time Huddersfield beat Blackburn.
See, now it's unfair because
just have a guess.
I've got access to the notes, you see, and I may have
1999.
The 13th of August.
13th of August, 1999. So the first win this decade.
Wow.
And century.
Fact sheet in full force.
There you are.
There we go. OK, well, I'm in the studio with a very happy Tim Feather because Bradford City, well, they got a great win against Colchester, 2-0, and on the line now to discuss this and more with Bradford City, it's our very own Pete Chapman. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Stephen.
So let's start with that Colchester victory. Cracking win, Pete.
It was, and I wasn't actually there at Guiseley. There was a couple of Bradford City fans, fans in the opposition team, and I think the look of surprise on their faces when someone told them the scores as they were coming in, and I think also because Kyle Bennett scored, it's been tough for the new signings in January, and apart from Adam Reach, who's shone out, the other 3-4 haven't really done that much. And Kyle Bennett was starting to get a bit of criticism off a few fans, I think, and it's good to see him score.
I don't know about you, Pete, but when it flashed up on my phone that James Hansen scored, my first thought was, we're going to get a 1-1 here.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, yeah, and it was good to see Hans playing as well, because of course he had to pull out of the game at the weekend against Brentford, and then Phil Parkinson wasn't too sure whether he'd make it or not for Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that was actually. I think I might be looking a bit too much into this, but from my point of view, I think that was really good management from Parky on that front about risking Davis and risking Hansen for Saturday, because I think everyone knew that Brentford were possibly too strong and were going to win us anyway. And the more important game was Colchester on the Tuesday night and Gillingham on Saturday, which is a big week for Bradford. So I think really leaving them two out, although it is a loss that we lost them, I think it probably helped us a little bit.
I'd agree completely. Gillingham and Colchester, both in and around where Bradford are, and it's getting points off teams around you at this stage of the season, really. You're not going to take points off the likes of Brentford or the Charltons or the Wolves, not Charlton, Wolves, Orient. It's getting those points from teams around you, because it has the equivalent of being a 6-pointer in effect.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be probably Charlton next year, actually, Pete. I would think where they're going. So next up, Pete, is against Gillingham. Next to City in the league, they're in 13th, City in 12th. How do you see that one going?
Well, it's going to be interesting to start with, isn't it? Because it's Peter Taylor coming back to Valley Parade, and I don't think he's the fans have that much love for him, really. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from that point of view. I think after Tuesday night, that City players must be on a high. The fans that went, even the fans that didn't go, will be on a high. So I can see there being a very good atmosphere in the ground, and it's a case of hopefully City start very well. Far too often this year they've gone behind and had to fight back and get an honourable draw, and very good draws against the likes of Coventry. But too often they've started slowly. They need to start really well and get the first goal on the board, and also that allows the crowd to relax a bit more then, because they start getting nervous if shots are flying here, there and everywhere, or they're not actually shooting, they're just playing well.
And just one last comment, Pete. It was said in the Telegraph and Argus today that Stephen Darby looks like he wants to stay at Bradford City. Just how big is that for Bradford?
Oh, it's massive. I think you only have to look at how well he plays. And I was chatting to Gary Jones the other week, and he said it's becoming embarrassing that Gary Jones keeps winning. He said it himself. He keeps winning man of the match, and Stephen Darby hasn't won it once. I don't think. It's quite clearly one of the best players in that team, and the sponsors, for whatever reason, seem to overlook him every week when they give their man of the match. But it'd be crucial if City can keep hold of Stephen Darby. He's one of the rocks of that defence, him and Davis, and they just probably waiting for Meza to get back, but then you've got a fairly good defence there.
He is massive for Bradford.
Absolutely. Pete, thanks very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And we should say happy birthday for the weekend as well.
Okay,
happy birthday, Pete.
Me and Tim will try and pop along for
okay.
Lovely. Take care, Pete.
Right,
bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go. That's Pete Chapman. Hey, so Tim, just how relieved were you when that result came through?
I was
very
surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, I was when it came up on Look North, I thought, what?
Just because Colchester are, they came to Valley Parade and they gave us a really, really good game.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that we managed to grind out on a win, and an away win as well.
Yeah.
I think it's been a while since we managed to get one of them.
Yeah.
Especially after the disappointment of Stevenage and Brentford. I wasn't expecting too much from that. When we were still 0-0 at half time, I was like, hey, I'll take a point here.
Yeah.
But I think most City fans were probably resigned to the fact that we weren't going to get a win at Brentford.
Just briefly then, I think, is there a similar potential for Bradford City to Huddersfield? What we were talking to Doug about, the stability and that kind of thing? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Bradford have been unlucky this season, if I'm being completely honest.
Yes.
I mean, there are lots of people on Facebook who think Parky should have been sacked and stuff like that, and in some respect, if any other manager had gone on the same run that Parky had gone on, 20 games without a win, would have probably been get out, and but I think that the fact that they stuck by him
it's good.
Was a good idea. But we've been unlucky in the fact that we've had Naki Wells get injured and then he left. Davis has been injured, who is just
key players.
The amount of trust he has in that back four is
it's amazing. What a decent central defender can do, it's amazing.
It is,
isn't it?
McArdle and Bates, they just don't seem to gel together, but when Davis is there, whoever else is playing alongside, seems to look a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also Meredith breaking his foot, Kyle Reid doing whatever he's done to his knee. It sounds disgusting, but he's done something. Refereeing. Well, yeah, there's been a couple of penalties that we should have got. I think we've just been unlucky this season.
Yeah.
And when you look at Rotherham, who have a lot of money to throw at things, and they've had all this luck,
there you go.
Just go Swede, doesn't it?
That's your lot. OK, we're looking at the Conference Premier now and Halifax Town now. Andrew Pinfield, a Halifax Town correspondent, is fair bit ill. He's under the weather at the moment. I think he might have caught that man flu you had, Tim, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, probably.
So
it's
Andrew,
been going round.
Yeah, Andrew, get better for next week. We'll hopefully speak to you then. But hey, 5-1 against Hyde. We did talk to Andrew, didn't we, last week? And we were all saying, come on, surely this is going to be a Halifax away win. You know, they've struggled, but you look at the goals Hyde had conceded, didn't quite get it to 100, but it was, it's on the way, well on the way. Lee Gregory hat-trick, fantastic, brilliant.
It is. It was, a great win for Halifax, especially with their away form. And the amount of promise it's given Halifax players as well. I mean, Matty Pearson this week, he said he thinks that they can get into the playoffs. He says, I honestly believe that we can. Like said, it is a great time to get some away form, and if we can match our away form with the home form, then I don't see why we can't. So he thinks that the Halifax could still gate crash the playoffs, which I think it might be a tough one. I don't think they'd win the playoffs. No, I think there's slightly better teams in there. But
they've done well, haven't they? They've done well, haven't they, Halifax this season? The thing I pick up from Halifax is how they've kept chipping away. Yeah, even when they've been on bad spells, they keep coming back, don't they? And
I mean, you consider the amount of injuries that they had earlier on in the season, and then Gregory breaking his hand, which came at a horrible time. Well, probably a good time for Halifax, because it meant that no one came in for him in the January window.
It did, actually.
And then he got that hat-trick.
I think someone just whacked him with a hammer in training. Just read, right, that's it. Oh, you're out for January. Oh, what a shame.
Just slammed the taxi down.
On a night out. Bang. Sorry, mate. With someone like Gregory, though, you just never know, do you? The guy can score a goal, can't he? His record's fantastic, isn't it? And
it is at that level.
If they can keep him fit to the rest of the season, like you say, I would agree. I think they can be playoff contenders, but I don't see them winning it.
No, which is unfortunate, because I'd love to see them. I'd love to see Halifax back in the Football League. Yeah. And the thing with Gregory is, will he be there at the end of the summer? You're probably thinking maybe
not. It's going to be difficult, isn't it? It's going to be difficult to see them hanging on. Haidu, they did beat, by the way, we should mention, Tim, already relegated.
First team in England to get relegated,
that's early.
They lost to Tamworth on Tuesday night, which
so it's relegated them. Hyde.
They relegated them. But other things in Halifax, Lewis Maynard thinks that the mid-season break has helped Halifax. The fact that they didn't have many games postponed, so they're quite ahead, so they didn't have to play on Tuesday night. That's so good. Going into the game with Welling on Saturday, they're going to have fresh legs, because Welling played Lincoln on Tuesday night.
Chris Bell will be happy. Bradford Park Avenue correspondent. He's a Lincoln fan.
He is.
So they'll be happy they beat Welling. Did you see them beating Welling? Or I think that's a good point, Tim. I think with the fixtures the way they've been set out, I think that's a good opportunity for Town.
I think it is, and I think they could beat Welling. It was a Lee Gregory hat-trick last time. Yeah, that won it for him. So can Lee Gregory get a second hat-trick against Welling? Yes, exactly. We'll wait and see.
You're listening to the Route 1 show, covering football in West Yorkshire and beyond.
OK, we're having a look at the Conference North now, and on the phone to discuss everything Guiseley with us is our Guiseley correspondent, it's Colin Robertson. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Steve, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, sir?
No, I'm not too bad.
Good. You're currently in a lay-by somewhere, are you, or at service station?
Service station on the M62.
Very good. Exciting times, is it?
No, yeah, deeply exciting. Coming back from work.
Well, some good news, because a win against Vauxhall Motors at the weekend, and then 2-0 victory over Stockport. Talk us through those games, Colin.
Yeah, well, two good results. The fixture on Saturday was a bit tight. I mean, we left it very late until I made it barely seconds on the watch with the last corner of the game, falling kindly to Kevin Holsgrove. Super finish for him, but we spurned so many chances against Vauxhall. It actually looked like it's going to be one of those days. And then on Tuesday night, Stockport County down at Nethermore for the first time ever. A team really down on their luck and really shouldn't be playing Conference North football, and to be fair, it was a tight game, but once we got on top, I thought we were thoroughly deserving of the 3 points, and 2 goals, one from Jake Lawler and another one from Wayne Brooksby, and it was a super finish from Wayne. It was a out of the area drive that nestled into the bottom right-hand corner, so it was a good week for Guiseley.
That's right.
Yeah, Colin, it seems like against Vauxhall Motors, it was one of them games where you really had to grind out a defeat, because even Michael Potts said that Drench pulled off a couple of good saves and that you could have even been 2-0 down.
Yeah, it was one of those where they had a spell on a couple of occasions where really they could have got the goal early doors in the first half. I mean, they're a good side, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're a baffling hard side, as you saw with Avenue getting a 0-0 draw there. There's some good players in there who were putting themselves in the shop window, and after the week they'd had, looked like they could have snatched something again on Saturday. And Michael Potts, as we stretched the game, we absolutely stretched to trying to get the 3 points. Michael Potts then had to hurry back and make a super challenge, come on as a sub, because we'd just been caught on the counter-attack. But he made one of those amazing last-ditch challenges, and then, of course, a couple of minutes later, we get the goal. So, yeah, it was tight and it was stretched, and they could have got something, yes, absolutely.
What do you make of Bradford Park Avenue chairman John Dean last night said to Chris Bell that he thinks that Guiseley will probably make the playoffs this season?
It's a chance, isn't it? I mean, I think we're pretty much under the wire at the moment. We're on a good run of form. Tough games coming up. We've got North Ferriby soon, and the fixtures get tough again when we go to Stockport on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a response from them. I think we're in a good vein of form. I think we've got a good squad at the moment. So, I wouldn't say that it's not unlikely. I think we've got a chance. But, it's very competitive at the top.
Sounds dangerously close to sitting on the fence, does this, Colin?
Yeah, well, it's hard to call at the moment because there are so many sides up there. We've got the games in hand, but you've got to win them. That's it. Got to beat North Ferriby then, that means. And we've got to beat Telford in a couple of weeks' time. They're tough games, and that take nothing for granted. 4 games in hand over sides doesn't mean 12 points.
No, absolutely not. So the next game then, Colin, what do you fancy? What does your gut say?
On Saturday, of course, we're away at Stockport again, double header. Hopefully we'll have another double header, because that would mean we would be in the playoffs. But this is a bit of a strange one. I think, Stockport obviously going through tough times, trying to work out what's going on at their club and settle with the level. I wouldn't be surprised, though. They have some quality. I wouldn't be surprised if they snatch a point off us on Saturday.
Yeah, they have Phil Jevons. He's quality, isn't he? For that level. They have Phil Jevons, and for Squill North level, that is a really good player.
Good, yeah, very good.
Yeah, and I think, one or two, he didn't play on Tuesday, but there's one or two that are also, clearly good footballers, and they've got a general sort of team that are pretty, I think full of individuals that could do well. I think they're unhappy with the management at the moment there. There's a lot of disgruntlement generally about the situation, and I think that's probably exacerbates. So when they get on a bad run of form, it's all doom and gloom. But obviously they're in mid-table. They're not cut adrift or anything. And you wouldn't be surprised if next season they put in a really good challenge on the title. To be honest.
Absolutely. Now, Colin, I've got to take a bit of an issue with you here, actually, because last week we were talking about the six-a-side that's been set up to the Guiseley community was. Now, we got a tweet after our segment saying you'd signed a 4-year deal with Guiseley A.F.C. SC. Colin, you promised us. What's going on? Apparently you've signed a 4-year deal with them as well.
A 4-year deal. Well, it's football, isn't it? You can never trust anything.
Are you telling us you're a mercenary?
I just a bit like, it's transfer deadline day. The Sky Sports cameras have been following me all around. Am I going to the BCB Route 1 show Towers, or am I going to be turning up at Guiseley Supporters Club?
Well, Adam Bridston on Twitter, he said that Route 1 show, they're just waiting for the rich backer to give them funds, but it's just waiting Football League approval. Then we'll have your signature.
Colin, we'll send a helicopter to you.
Lovely. Colin, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers,
Good
guys.
Getting on. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers,
Bye-bye. Bye. There we go. Double dealing Colin Robertson, as he shall forever be known now.
There's no loyalty in football these days. No loyalty.
I'm not in danger of losing you. There's no one hovering to sign you up, is it, Tim?
No.
Fair enough. Me either.
I'll go on Sky Sports. I'll do a McCormack. I'll go on Sky Sports and say that.
Please, I'm available. Come on. So getting back to Guiseley then, Tim. John Dean, interesting there. Park Avenue chairman saying about he thinks Guiseley will make the playoffs. Do you think Guiseley will make the playoffs?
I think they can, yeah. I don't know whether they'll win the playoffs because there are, again, same as Halifax in the league above. There's a lot of really good teams up there. But again, I'd love to look down at the conference and see Guiseley in the conference.
It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
I mean, like... Even if the worst thing ever happened, if Guiseley got promoted and they did a hide, you'd still be happy just to know that. And there's another West Yorkshire team that's in the top of in the Skrill Premier. But on Saturday, I think Guiseley have got the wind behind them. I think they can easily. I think they can get a win against Stockport.
Hopefully, we know how effective that wind can be.
we do. But I just. I think some teams probably in this league go to Stockport and think, wow, look at this, it's quite a big stadium,
I did that. You did that. I did that with Park Avenue. I was like, wow, look at this.
I just hope, I think that could be something like when, like Colin said about Stockport making an effort next season, that could definitely play into their hands that it's a big stadium.
Absolutely. We'll wait and see. Right, we're having a look at Bradford Park Avenue now, and joining us on the line is our Park Avenue correspondent. It's Chris Bell. Hi, Chris.
Hey, mate, you all right?
I'm good, thanks for joining us. Last game against Workington, 1-0 win. Was it convincing? Sounds a bit scrappy. What did you make of it, Chris?
Yeah, I think the word was scrappy, quite honestly. First off, Park Avenue, didn't create a lot of chances, but deservedly led at half-time.
Yeah.
Second half, Park Avenue, in the couple of games beforehand, from what we've seen in Park Avenue, they just haven't looked at the races. They've looked a little bit like, the season's over already kind of thing. And lethargic, and that effort, shall we say, hasn't been there. The first half of yesterday's game, plenty of effort, brilliant performance, really tried hard to get the ball down and play the football. Went in the half-time a goal up. Second half, came back out, and it was like the season was all over again.
Yeah,
it was lacking significantly, put it that way.
Yeah, because, the last time I saw Avenue was against the Vauxhall Motors, Drive, and that was a dire game. Is the season over, really?
It is.
Is that the problem?
To an extent, I suppose that is the problem now, isn't it? We've still got 10 games to go. And the motivation for the playoffs, well, that's not really going to happen. 15 points off the playoffs, and there's a hell of a lot of teams above them in there, especially, including the likes of Guiseley, who've still got, 3 games in hand over Park Avenue, and more over sides that are above them. Last night, what it did do is it should have secured the conference no football for them for next season. That was the important thing, I suppose, with last night's game, was that they beat the side at the bottom of the league and secured their own safety, basically. Speaking to John Deasy after the game last night, he reckons between 40 and 45 points will guarantee you safety, to avoid relegation. And Park Avenue, after 32 games, got 39 points, and within the remaining 10 games, you'd expect them to at least pick up another 3 or 4 points. In fact, frankly, you'd be pretty disappointed if they only picked up another 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's the season done and dusted, effectively, in terms of how the league table is. Of course, having spoken to the chairman, John Dean, last night after the game, he's still hoping for something like a 10th place finish. Not impossible, but they'll just need to be able to use the end of this season, shall we say, on the pitch to build for the start of next season. It's not completely done and dusted, but it is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Chris, what do you make of Danny Glover being let go this week. John Deasy says, I'd like to thank him for all his efforts for the club and I wish him all the best for the future. You couldn't meet a nicer guy. I'd love to keep Danny here, but I've got to make difficult decisions with a budget and help protect the club.
Yeah, it's a peculiar one. Obviously, he's not been there that long. He's played six appearances, a couple of which have been off the bench. He's scored 2 goals. He looked useful to me anyway. I thought, there's been times when he's shown a lot about him. Equally as much as been a game or two, shall we say, in his spell where he's pretty much been invisible and disappeared full stop. It's peculiar in the sense that, he's not been there that long. He's an out-and-out striker, and they've let him go. And obviously, we've said quite a lot this season, Park Avenue have never had a great deal of out-and-out striking options. It's a shame for me, but you don't know, obviously, with the personal situation of the player. Obviously, for Danny to have come from Worcester City, from the point of view that he's spent a lot of his career playing in the Midlands or the south of England kind of thing, presumably he still lives down that way. So that's a hell of a trek, especially for these Wednesday night games. From the budget point of view, I'm not entirely sure. It's an interesting one because nobody ever seems to stay that long. Or, players that come never seem to get that long a period of time, shall we say, for John Deasy to run the rule over. He seems to make his decisions pretty quickly about who he wants and how long for. It's a shame for me, though, because I think he was a striker that certainly had something about him, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, Harrogate Town next. What do you think?
That's going to be a very, very tough game.
They're third. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Chris, you and I did the game together for BCB Radio, which we'll be covering this time as well on Saturday. And at that point, Avenue and Harrogate wasn't much between them, really.
No, I had this exact conversation with John Dean after the game last night as well, and we were talking about the Harrogate game. And he made a very, very good point, which is quite frankly, since that 1-1 draw that we covered, the two sides are going, frankly, completely the opposite directions. Harrogate have soared up the table. They've had some great wins. Obviously, the 4-0 win against Boston, the 3-1 win away at Altrincham on Tuesday night in particular stand out for that for them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Park Avenue have been pretty poor, to be honest, and have, until last night, had dropped as low as 17th.
Yeah.
It really is stark contrast in a game as well. After that game, when it looked like, had Park Avenue have carried on with 11 men, we both said that we thought Park Avenue would have gone
Absolutely.
to win that game, by at least a goal or two. I like to be optimistic, as you all know. However, this is going to be a tough game. They are going to have to really play for each other and show, play like the season isn't over, basically, if we're going to get anything against this Harrogate Town side that's sitting third in the table.
Absolutely.
It will take something, not special, but it will take just a far better performance than we've seen from Park Avenue in the last 3 or 4 games if they're to come out come out of this game with anything. Not impossible, but they're going to have to work hard for it, because Sam Weaver's side was said on an outstanding run of form at the moment.
Absolutely. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem at all, mate.
Take care. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There we go. Team Bradford Park Avenue. I mean, it's pretty much season over. It's kind of just petering out, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but like they said, they wanted to be stable in the North Division, so that's what they've done. So you could probably say that's the one objective ticked out of the box there for John Deasy's side.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Click subscribe on iTunes and get the Route 1 show every week for free.
Okay, it's another busy fixture list in the Premiership this weekend, and we're going to have a little preview of the games now, starting with that 12:45 kick-off between Hull and Manchester City. Tim, Manchester City need to start climbing back, don't they? Chelsea getting a bit of a gap there. Got to start with a win against Hull, surely.
They do. They've got a bit of making up to do in games played as well. They've got 3 games on hand on Chelsea, so if they win them, they've got, they'll be on level points with Chelsea.
Do you think they'll win it?
I don't know. Hull are a tough nut to crack at home, but I think they should be able to at least come out there with a 1-0 win.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think Manchester City are good for that one. Everton versus Cardiff. Interesting one there. Tim, how do you see that one going?
Yeah, well, Everton they're a couple of points behind 5th place now, so but Cardiff are rock bottom. Are 18th, sorry, they're not rock bottom. This is how long it's been since I last looked at the Premier League table. Cardiff are 18th. But I think Everton should be able to win that one quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think it's. I think after the FA Cup disappointment Everton had, I think they'll be looking to bounce back.
I don't know about you. This might be a bit bad of me, but I kind of want Cardiff to go down because of the way that they've approached the Premier League this year. I think Vincent Tan, and he's just thought, I'm the big cheese. It's nothing to do with the team or the club or the manager. It's all about me. I'm going to throw as much money as I can at it.
I feel bad for Solskjaer in a way because I think he's just been kind of thrown into the mix, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he should have gone there. No. I think even he's probably realised.
Yeah, whoops.
Yep.
That's a big...
should have stayed in Norway.
Yeah. Fulham against Newcastle. Newcastle, are they in 7th? No, they're not in 7th.
They're 8th.
They're 8th, but...
Quite a few points behind
7th. 7 is
7th.
pertinent to Newcastle, isn't it? Would you like to explain why?
Because of the Europa League?
No, try again.
Because of the Champions League?
No.
Because of relegation?
No.
I'm just trying to avoid the 7-match ban thing. I'm coming up with anything I can.
So Padre's been done on it for 7 games.
He has.
It's the highest ban that managers received.
Well, Newcastle at least have one record.
It's the Invincibles. They've done okay the last couple of games of Newcastle, haven't they?
They have, but on the headbutt, do you know what I find funny? The fact that everyone, not like my friends who live down south or further down south or around this area, say, "Oh, it's terrible, absolutely disgrace what he's just done there." Yeah, all the friends that I have who are Newcastle fans and from up north and in Newcastle, they just go, "Didn't go out." That's normal. He ain't done out.
Yeah, that's yeah. He's a wuss for doing
that. Just how Geordie say bye, is that?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, absolutely.
But no, they've had a really good season. They'll be playing Fulham, who everything's gone wrong there.
Yeah,
really.
Fulham.
Owners, managers, everything's gone wrong. But team news, this is hot off the press. Debussy and Loic Remy are not going to be travelling, apparently. They're both out. I think that's injuries, yeah.
Injuries, there we go. So a tricky one there. Southampton versus Norwich. Southampton placed below Newcastle, and Norwich doing the Norwich thing of, they've
turned into Wigan.
Yeah,
Norwich have become...
They have. That's really good. Yeah, they have become the new Wigan.
Wigan or West Ham, just like
we just survived by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
They've got a really difficult running of Norwich, but...
West Ham are probably looking at Norwich going, it's not us.
Yeah, it's not us, thank God. So Southampton, Norwich, how do you see that one?
Well, Norwich have got something to fight for. Southampton, their season's over, to be honest. I think there's not much more they can do from the position that they're in. So I could see Norwich sneaking somewhat there just because they are playing for something.
That's true. Stoke are in action against West Ham. You've got a great Stoke.
I do. Yeah. Best start of the weekend, which is the fact that if only home games counted, Stoke would be in 6th above Man United.
Wow. But it doesn't. Away games count too, so they're in 12th.
They have. I think they're safe as well.
Yeah, them versus West Ham, I think it's going to be straightforward.
Yeah, I think it's starting to get to the point in the season where the middle lot are just kind of, that's it for them, and you're looking at the top and you're looking at the bottom for the interesting bits of the Premier League.
I agree. Sunderland versus Crystal Palace. Sunderland, they've got that game in hand. Well, they've got a few games in hand now, haven't they? They've got 3 games in hand on some teams. Do you see them getting out of the relegation places?
I can see him possibly.
Palace have somehow been dragged back down, haven't they?
They have.
We're doing so well.
I can see Sunderland kicking on, actually. They do have 3 games in hand, which if they win, they'll be up on 33 points.
They'll be on 33 points.
Which will knock them up to about 10th. Oh. So, they do have quite a few games in hand because of the cup run, and maybe that's what might galvanise them a little bit. And I think, they were unfortunate. They lost against Hull. Yeah. I think Man City's class at the day at Wembley just finished it. Yeah, it did. Didn't it? But I think Sunderland can stay up.
Yeah, I agree. Swansea versus West Brom. Swansea, interesting time for them. They're sitting in 14th at the moment on 29 points. West Brom, we know the struggles they're facing. They're in 17th on 25 points. How do you see that one going? It's not a game I'd particularly want to see.
I can see West Brom getting dragged into it. They've had a bit of a turbulent time, and with Anelka getting the ban, they said that they're not going to appeal it.
Yeah.
I think you possibly look at. It's very tough. I think the bottom three will be decided between Fulham, Cardiff, West Brom, and Palace and Norwich. I think that's what. And maybe, saying that, Swansea are only on 29 as well, so it is a tight one at the bottom there, isn't it?
It is. Late kick-off on Saturday, 5:30. It's Aston Villa versus Chelsea. It's going to be Chelsea, isn't it? I just couldn't.
You know what? It couldn't be.
Chelsea.
It might even be one of them days for Chelsea. It might be just a late kick-off at Villa Park under the lights. It is a daunting atmosphere.
I don't like Chelsea.
You don't want Chelsea to win the title.
I don't want Chelsea to win the title. No, I'd like to see Liverpool get it. I think at this point,
but Benteke needs to. Get up, he needs to sort out that miss.
Shocker, absolute shock. So which way do you think Villa might sneak something there?
I think Villa could sneak. They probably won't, but you can see him sneaking something there.
Whopper on Sunday, Manchester United versus Liverpool. That's a cracker, isn't it? How do you see that one going? Is that Liverpool's make or break, do you think?
Yes.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
And I think Liverpool will win that.
Do you think Liverpool will win that?
I think Liverpool will win that comfortably, to be honest. I don't think Manchester United are not.
It's just going to be if they can hold the nerve, because they're a better team than Manchester United.
They are. They are. And Suarez and Sturridge playing the way that they are. It's just them two are unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah.
And,
great partnership, isn't it?
Man United, just even the players don't look. There's nothing there, sort of thing. You saw him all the week in Champions League. Van Persie. There were rumours this week that he might be leaving in the summer. So everything's going wrong at Man United, and Liverpool fans are just looking over the fence at them, going, "That was us
at last." 20 years. North London derby finishes off the weekend's Premiership games. Arsenal versus Tottenham. Arsenal, it's going to be another near miss for them, isn't it? I mean, they've got the FA Cup, but I don't think any, support is particularly going to be that excited about the FA Cup, considering where they were in the league. And I
don't even think they can win the FA Cup. I think there's a couple of surprises.
Yeah,
I think Hull, Wigan,
mentally, the week out the Arsenal.
Yeah, I think people are probably crucify me if they're saying that. I don't, because Arsenal are the highest ranked team in the FA Cup, but I seriously think it could be another surprise team that wins the FA Cup. I don't think it'll be Sheffield United. No. Unfortunate for us, the Yorkshires. Us, the Yorkshire lads. But I definitely think Wigan and Hull are throwing something in there.
Hull might be a good bet, you see.
Hull would be a good bet.
Hull could be a good bet, might.
But I can actually see it, back to the Arsenal-Tottenham game. Yeah. I can see Tottenham getting absolutely demolished.
They're a bit. It's Sherwood. Should he keep the job?
Do you know what? I could see happening? Right. Sherwood keeps the job until the end of the summer when the World Cup finishes, and everyone's talking about Louis van Gaal and he's gonna stop being. I will say one name: Klinsmann. Klinsmann coming back as manager as Tottenham Hotspur.
The United States of America's
How amazing
manager.
Would that be?
That would be fantastic. He'd be perfect.
It would.
You've heard it here first.
It just fits, doesn't it? I mean, can you imagine him? He wins a trophy and he's the one who leads
the dive.
That would be the best dive.
Don't dive like this. Dive like this. That would be amazing. So you think Tottenham are going to get stuffed?
I do. I just. Thing is, I think Arsenal will have something about them, and especially with the rest that Arsenal have had.
Yeah.
The only thing I can probably say going in Tottenham's favour is that they haven't had to travel during the week.
No.
Arsenal had to travel to Munich, which is a nice city, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's your lot for another episode of the Route 1 Show. I've been Stephen Brown, and with me has been Tim Feather. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Click subscribe on iTunes and get the Route 1 Show every week for free.